In the newest animated movie of the summer, DreamWorks depicts a world full of sea creatures in Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. There's a lot of potential in a story like this as we see the title protagonist navigate her existence as a Kraken living among people. The film is directed by Kirk who previously directed The Croods and Vivo, both of which I really enjoyed. Meanwhile, one of the credited writers on this is Pam Brady, who worked alongside Trey Parker and Matt Stone on the South Park movie and Team America World Police. So with that out of the way, what did I think of the film itself? I thought it was okay, but nothing particularly remarkable. To start with the positives, I did really like the world building of this society. The filmmakers did a good job of showing the history of the Kraken world and their conflict with other fantastical sea beings like mermaids. A lot of thought has clearly been put into how the Gillman family wound up on land and how they've managed to fit in with humans. There's even a funny gag explaining how they hand-wave looking nothing like the other residents in the town of Oceanside. I just really like learning how the Krakens functioned and the mythology the filmmakers have created for them. Ruby Gillman herself is a likable enough protagonist. She's trying her best to live her life and hang out with friends without too much disruption, and it's understandable the confusion she has when she finds out about her Kraken abilities when in water. Her goofy uncle has a few funny moments himself and is a likable presence. The other aspect I definitely want to compliment the movie on is the visual look. The animation is wonderful, which is not too surprising considering what DreamWorks Animation has been pulling off these past several years. People seem to have this conception of what a DreamWorks movie is, but they're not a studio of a house style. This does not look like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which did not look like The Bad Guys, which did not look like How to Train Your Dragon, which did not look like Madagascar, and that's great. Each individual filmmaker and artist brings something to each new movie being produced there. In the case of Ruby Gillman, I like how rubbery the characters move, and there's some eye-catching images when the Kraken are glowing underwater. I particularly want to shout out Pierre-Olivier Vincent, the lead production designer on the film. A multiple Annie Award winner, who was also the production designer on the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy, he displayed a lot of creativity in depicting the underwater and seaside worlds. I especially like that Oceanside looks like one of those plastic Toy Town sets we had as children. It adds a lot of charm to the movie. Despite those things I appreciated, I felt the film largely underwhelmed in the story department. The movie has a hyperactive sort of pacing to it as it desperately tries to keep the audience's attention, but this wound up creating the opposite effect for me as I had a difficult time getting that engaged. A lot of the film has the typical teen drama, including Ruby wanting to go to the prom and having trouble asking out the boy she likes, which can be done well, but I did not think they did it in a particularly interesting or clever or funny way. We get the storyline of Ruby spending less time with her friends to be with a new popular girl, but her friends did not stand out enough for me to care about that. Anytime they appeared, it was just a reminder of, oh right, you're in this movie too. The screenplay attempts to juggle so many storylines and throws so much at you. In addition to the teen drama aspect, we also have Ruby dealing with her transformation, the family drama, her training with her queen grandmother, and this conflict with the mermaids. We also get an additional comic villain with this sea captain the Gillmans have to deal with, who I felt could have easily been cut out of the movie and not affect the story that much. There is some potential to do something interesting with this mermaid that Ruby meets and befriends. The dynamic they have between each other is done okay, although I have to question why the trailers decide to show what the mermaid does later. I would have been able to tell where things were headed anyway, but it was still a bizarre thing to include a major third act reveal like that in the marketing. Meanwhile, the soundtrack seems to consist of mostly generic-sounding auto-tuned pop songs, and that got tiring for me very quickly. There are several points where I cannot help but be reminded of Turning Red, as there are quite a number of story similarities. However, I'm not docking points off Ruby Gillman for this, as I don't think the filmmakers intentionally copied that film. With the lengthy amount of time it usually takes to make an animated feature, they were probably well into production when Turning Red was released last year. I actually feel bad for Kirk and the rest of the crew. Imagine you're working hard on your movie and then another film comes out first that by sheer coincidence happens to feature similar elements. That has got to be a tricky thing to navigate. What seems fresh to the creators when they're making something could appear derivative when it finally reaches an audience. In the end, while I think there are things to enjoy and appreciate in Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, especially the visuals and world building, I just did not find the story all that compelling, and only a couple bits amuse me. But it is an example of how DreamWorks Animation is always trying to do new things and explore various subject matter, and that's what makes them a studio whose movies I always look forward to seeing.